The council chamber was bigger than any building Taehyun Park had ever seen on Earth. The walls were made of crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. 37 different alien species sat in circles around a central platform. Some looked like giant insects. Others looked like living water. A few were so strange that Park could not even describe them properly. Park stood at the human station with 3 other people from Earth. Dr. Hanul Choi stood to his left, her eyes moving quickly as she watched everything. Commander Daijung Kwan stood to his right, his face calm but his hands ready. Behind them, young Yanwu Bei was setting up their equipment. Park cleared his throat and spoke into the translator device. His words came out in dozens of different alien languages at once. "I request permission to record this meeting," Park said. "Earth diplomatic protocol requires full documentation of all official proceedings." Silence filled the chamber for a moment. Then someone laughed. It was a clicking sound that came from High Chancellor Vrex, the leader of the Thalen species. The Thalens looked like huge praying mantises with sharp edges and cold eyes. The clicking spread. Other aliens joined in with their own versions of laughter. Some made bubbling sounds, others flashed lights. The chamber filled with mockery. "These humans and their recordings," Vrex said through his translator. "Do they not trust the word of honorable beings? Do they think memory itself is a lie?" More laughter. Park did not move. He waited until the noise died down. "I trust," Park said quietly, "but I also verify. This is not an insult. It is simply how Earth does things." An alien who looked like a walking puddle of water spoke next. This was Kelth from the Voric species. They were known across the galaxy as tough traders who never lost a deal. "Perhaps humans have bad memories," Kelth said, his watery body rippling with amusement. "Perhaps they forget their own words so easily that they need machines to remember for them." The chamber erupted again. Park noticed that only one alien was not laughing. Observer Rethan sat perfectly still in the far corner. The Silex species looked like living crystal, and Rythan caught the light from the walls and split it into rainbows. The Silex rarely spoke, but everyone knew they were ancient and wise. "May I proceed with the recordings?" Park asked again. Rex waved a sharp limb. "Do what you wish, human. Waste your time with your primitive habits. The council has more important matters to discuss." Park nodded to Bay. The young specialist activated the equipment. Cameras began recording from 5 different angles. Audio devices captured sound in frequencies that covered all known alien species. Environmental sensors measured everything from air pressure to gravity fluctuations. Timestamp systems marked every second with precise accuracy. Dr. Choi leaned close to Park and whispered, "They really hate this." "I know," Park whispered back. "Just keep watching. Take notes on everything." The meeting began. The topic was trade agreements between several species. Park listened carefully and made sure everything was recorded. He noticed something interesting. When aliens made promises, they used grand words and formal gestures. But they did not write anything down. They did not sign documents. They simply spoke and expected everyone to remember. This continued for weeks. Every day, Park arrived early and set up his recording equipment. Every day, someone made a joke about the humans and their obsession with documentation. Every day, Park ignored the mockery and did his job. Commander Kwan grew frustrated. One evening, back in their quarters, he spoke his mind. "Why do we accept this disrespect?" Kwan said. "We are not children. We are representatives of Earth." "Because we are doing something they do not understand," Park replied. "They think we are weak." "Let them think that, but why?" Kwan asked. Park looked at his security chief. "Because one day the truth will matter, and when that day comes, we will have something they do not. We will have proof." Dr. Choi was working on something else. She spent her free time reviewing old council records. Earth had received copies of public council documents going back hundreds of years. Choi read through them all looking for patterns. What she found troubled her. Many important agreements had no detailed records. Disputes about what was said or promised were common. But without recordings, there was no way to know the truth. The powerful species always seemed to win these arguments. Their version of events became the official history. "Ambassador," Choi said one night, showing Park her findings, "I think I know why they laugh at our recordings. It is not because they think it is silly. It is because recordings threaten their power." Park studied the data. "They can change history if there are no records," he said slowly. "Exactly," Choi said. "Without proof, the strong control the truth." The next day, Park made his recording request with new understanding. The laughter did not bother him anymore. He knew what he was really doing. He was creating a weapon made of truth. Bay worked hard to improve their systems. The young specialist added more cameras, better microphones, stronger encryption. Everything was backed up in multiple locations, including a secure server back on Earth. If they destroy our equipment here, we still have copies, Bay explained. They cannot erase the truth. Other species began to exaggerate their casualness. When the humans carefully documented seating arrangements, the aliens made a show of sitting randomly. When Park recorded environmental conditions, they joked about how humans needed to know the temperature of every room. When Bay verified timestamps, they laughed about how humans were slaves to clocks, but observer Rythan never laughed. The crystalline being watched the humans with what might have been interest. Sometimes light would refract through Rythan's body in complex patterns. Park wondered what the ancient Silex was thinking. After 2 months, something changed. High Chancellor Vrex announced that a special negotiation would begin. 2 powerful species were fighting over a star system full of valuable resources. The Thalans claimed it based on ancient exploration. The Vorics claimed it based on current use. The Council needed a mediator. Someone neutral who could listen to both sides and recommend a fair solution. Rex looked directly at Park. We choose the human ambassador. Earth has no stake in this dispute. Park can be fair. The chamber agreed quickly. Too quickly, Park thought. He accepted the role formally. I will need to record all meetings related to this negotiation, Park said. Rex clicked in amusement. Of course you will, human. Record everything. We grant you that permission. That night, Quan voiced his concerns. This feels like a trap. It is, Park agreed. They think we are easy to manipulate. They chose us because they think we are weak. Are we walking into danger? Choi asked. Park looked at his team. Yes, but we are also walking in with cameras running. Whatever happens, the truth will be recorded. Bay checked the equipment one more time. All systems are ready, Ambassador. Park nodded. The real test was about to begin. The aliens had laughed at Earth's rules for months. Soon they would learn why those rules existed. The disputed star system was called Threshold 7. It had 3 planets with rare minerals that every advanced species needed. High Chancellor Vrex claimed the Thalans had discovered it first, 200 years ago. Emissary Kelth claimed the Vorics had been mining there for 50 years, which gave them the stronger claim. Park's job was to listen to both sides, study the evidence, and recommend a fair solution. The Council would then vote on his recommendation. It seemed simple enough. But Park knew nothing was simple in galactic politics. The first meeting took place in a smaller chamber. Just Park, his team, Vrex, Kelth, and their advisors. Bay set up the recording equipment as usual. Neither alien objected, though Vrex's mandibles clicked with amusement. Vrex presented the Thalan case first. He showed old star maps and exploration logs. According to these records, a Thalan ship had charted the system in the year 2087 by Earth's calendar. They had planted a claim beacon on the largest planet. This beacon still broadcasts today, Vrex said. It proves our ancient right to this system. Park asked questions. Do you have the original sensor data from that exploration mission? Vrex clicked dismissively. The ship's records were stored according to our customs. We do not keep such detailed archives. The testimony of our historical keepers is sufficient. So you have no physical proof? Park asked. We have the beacon and the word of the Thalan hierarchy, Vrex said coldly. For 200 years that has been enough for the Council. Kelth presented next. The Vorics had moved into the system 50 years ago and built mining stations. They had extracted resources and sold them across the galaxy. Everyone knew the Vorics operated in Threshold 7. We have decades of trade records, Kelth said, his watery form shimmering with confidence. We have employed workers from a dozen species. We have paid taxes to the regional authority. Our claim is based on actual use, not ancient history. Park asked more questions. Did you check for existing claims before you began mining? Kelth rippled in what might have been a shrug. The system appeared abandoned. The old beacon was not registered in current databases. We assumed any ancient claims had been forgotten. So you did not verify? Park pressed. Ambassador, you must understand how things work in the galaxy, Kelth said with what sounded like patience. Not everything is written down. Not everything is recorded. Sometimes possession is the stronger claim. The meetings continued for 3 weeks. Park listened to experts from both sides. He examined what little evidence existed. He asked detailed questions that often annoyed the aliens. Dr. Choi worked behind the scenes, digging through historical records. She discovered something troubling. The Thalan beacon signal had been analyzed by several independent scientists over the years. The results suggested the beacon was not as old as the Thalans claimed. "Ambassador, I think the beacon might have been placed more recently and made to look old," Choi said privately. Park frowned. That would be fraud. "But can you prove it?" "Not without access to the beacon itself," Choi admitted. "And the Thalans will never allow that." Meanwhile, Bay noticed something odd in the recordings. During breaks, when they thought the humans were not paying attention, Thalan and Vorix representatives would talk quietly together. They seemed friendly, too friendly for species supposedly in conflict. "Commander Quan, look at this footage," Bay said, showing her security chief several clips. Quan watched carefully. In one clip, a Thalan advisor and a Vorix advisor were seen sharing what looked like a laugh. In another, they exchanged what might have been a friendly gesture. "That is strange," Quan said. "Enemies do not act like this." They brought their findings to Park. The ambassador studied everything carefully. "I think this whole dispute might be fake," Park said quietly. "But I need to be sure before I make any accusations." On day 19, Vrex and Kelth requested a private meeting with Park. Just the three of them, no advisors, no other council members. They said they wanted to speak freely to find a solution. Park agreed, but insisted on bringing his recording equipment. When Park arrived at the private room with his cameras, Vrex objected immediately. "This is a private conversation between leaders," the Thalan said sharply. "Your constant recording is insulting. Can you not trust us for even one conversation?" Kelth added. "We are trying to find a peaceful solution. But we cannot speak openly if every word is being preserved forever." Park stood in the doorway, holding his equipment. "If you wish to speak with me as the mediator, it must be recorded. That is Earth's rule. If you want an unrecorded conversation, perhaps we should not have this meeting." The two aliens looked at each other. Park could feel the tension in the air. Finally, Vrex clicked in annoyance. "Very well. Bring your primitive devices. Record everything if it makes you feel better." Park entered and set up 3 cameras at different angles. He activated audio recording. He started the timestamp verification. Everything was captured and immediately backed up to the human quarters. Then Vrex and Kelth revealed their true plan. "Ambassador Park," Kelth began, "we will speak plainly. The Thalans and Vorix are not enemies. We are partners. This dispute over Threshold 7 was created by us." Park's face showed nothing, but his hand made sure the cameras were recording clearly. Vrex continued, "The system is valuable. Together we wish to control it. But if we simply claimed it jointly, other species would object. So we created a dispute. We bring it to the council. A mediator recommends a compromise. We agree to share the system. Everyone thinks it is a fair solution. And where do I fit into this plan?" Park asked carefully. "You recommend joint administration," Kelth said simply. "You tell the council that both sides have valid claims. You suggest they share the system under both Thalan and Vorix management. And in exchange?" Park asked. Vrex leaned forward. "Earth gets preferred trading status with both our civilizations. Technology transfers, advanced weapons, favorable trade routes. Your poor little planet will gain more in one day than you could negotiate in a century." Kelth added, "All we ask is that you be reasonable. Make the recommendation we need. And perhaps be discreet about the nature of this conversation." Park was silent for a long moment. The cameras recorded everything. Every word, every gesture, every expression. "I will take your offer under advisement," Park said finally. "I must consult with my government. I will present my recommendation to the council in 3 days." Vrex's mandibles spread in satisfaction. "You are wise, Ambassador. Earth has chosen the right representative. You understand how power works in the galaxy. Your recordings have captured nothing but a reasonable diplomatic discussion," Kelth said smoothly. "We look forward to hearing your recommendation." Park gathered his equipment and left. His face was calm, but his heart was racing. He walked quickly back to the human quarters. When the door closed behind him, he looked at his team. "We have them," Park said quietly. "We have everything on recording. They confessed their entire conspiracy. They tried to bribe us. They revealed their plan to manipulate the council." Quan's eyes went wide. "They said all of this on camera?" Every word, Park confirmed. Choi looked worried. If we expose this, there will be chaos. The Thalans and Vorix are two of the most powerful species in the Council. I know, Park said, which is exactly why we must expose it. This is what Earth stands for. Truth, justice, the rule of law. We did not come to the stars to become part of corruption. He turned to Bay. Start preparing a presentation. I want every piece of evidence we have organized perfectly. We exposed them in 3 days. The team got to work immediately. They knew this would be dangerous. They knew there would be consequences. But they also knew it was the right thing to do. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's obsession with recording everything. In 3 days, they would understand why it mattered. For 3 days, the human team worked without stopping. They reviewed every recording from the past 3 weeks. They organized evidence into categories. They verified timestamps. They checked and double-checked everything. Dr. Choi discovered more evidence of the conspiracy. She found old council records where similar patterns appeared. The Thalans and Vorix had done this before. They would create a fake dispute, bring it to the council, and then agree to share whatever resource they wanted. Without detailed records, no one had ever proven the pattern. They have been doing this for years, Choi told Park. At least 7 times that I can find, maybe more. And no one stopped them because there was no proof, Park said. Exactly. Without recordings, it is just accusations. One species claiming another is lying. The council does not like that kind of conflict. Bay created a presentation that would work with all the different alien senses. Some species saw different colors than humans. Others heard different frequencies. The presentation had to communicate clearly to everyone. It took precise work, but Bay was good at this. Commander Kwan noticed something troubling. There were more Thalan and Vorix security ships in orbit around the council station. They were positioning themselves carefully. Ambassador, they are preparing for something, Kwan warned. I think they suspect we might not cooperate. How many ships? Park asked. 12 Thalan warships, 8 Vorix cruisers, all heavily armed. Park was quiet for a moment. If we expose them, they might react violently. Yes, Kwan said. We should request Earth military support. There is no time. And calling for military help would tell them we know something. Park shook his head. We proceed as planned. But increase security protocols. If something happens, protecting the recordings is our priority. Kwan understood. He quietly prepared his security team. They would not start a fight, but they would finish one if necessary. On the morning of the 3rd day, Park contacted both Vrex and Kelth. He told them he was ready to present his recommendation to the council. Both aliens sent messages expressing satisfaction and support. The council chamber filled with representatives from all 37 species. This was an important moment. Everyone knew the Threshold 7 dispute had been difficult. They were curious to see what solution the human mediator would propose. Observer Rythan took their usual position in the corner. The crystalline being was perfectly still as always, but Park noticed the light refracting through Rythan's body seemed more intense than usual. The ancient Silex was paying close attention. Park stood at the central platform. Bay activated the presentation systems. Cameras recorded from every angle. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Park began. I have completed my investigation into the Threshold 7 dispute. But before I present my recommendation, I must ask a question. The chamber was silent. Vrex and Kelth looked confident. How many of you remember exactly what was said during the Treaty of Threshold 40 years ago? Confused murmurs filled the chamber. Several delegates raised appendages or made noises indicating they remembered, but when they started to speak, their versions differed. One claimed the treaty guaranteed free trade. Another said it established territorial boundaries. A third remembered it as a non-aggression pact. Park displayed images from Earth's historical archives. They showed the public portions of that old treaty. The actual words proved all 3 delegates were wrong. Memory is not perfect, Park said. This is true for all species. It is not an insult. It is simply biology, which is why humanity records everything, not because we distrust, but because we respect truth. Vrex clicked impatiently. Ambassador, we did not gather to hear philosophy. Please present your recommendation. I will, Park said. But first, the council must see what I discovered. He nodded to Bay. The presentation began. The recording of the private meeting played for everyone to see and hear. Vrex's voice explaining the fake dispute. Kelth describing their partnership. Both of them offering bribes to the human ambassador. Every word, Every detail, multiple camera angles, perfect audio, verified timestamps. The chamber erupted into chaos. Vrex shot to his feet, mandibles clacking furiously. This recording is false. It has been manipulated.
The human is lying.
Kelth's watery form rippled with anger. This meeting was private. The human violated diplomatic protocol by recording it. Other delegates shouted. Some were angry at the conspiracy. Others were angry at Park for recording a private conversation. The noise grew louder and louder. Park raised his voice. I informed both parties that I would record the meeting. They gave permission. Everything was done according to Earth diplomatic protocol. Rex made a sharp gesture. Security guards in Thalen armor moved toward the human delegation. Quan immediately stepped forward, his hand on his weapon. Stand down, Park said quietly to his security chief. Ambassador, I said stand down. But the Thalen guards were not there to arrest anyone. They were there to destroy evidence. One of them raised an energy weapon and fired at the human recording equipment. The shot hit Bay's main console. It exploded in sparks and smoke. A piece of debris flew outward, striking Dr. Choi in the shoulder. She fell with a cry of pain. Quan reacted instantly. He drew his weapon and fired, hitting the Thalen guard who had shot first. Two more guards raised their weapons. Quan's security team returned fire. The chamber dissolved into violence. Emergency alarms blared. Security shields began dropping from the ceiling, dividing the chamber into sections. Park dove toward Choi, trying to reach her. Quan and his team formed a defensive position around the ambassador. More shots were fired. 3 Thalen guards fell. 1 human security officer was hit but kept fighting. Through the chaos, Bay crawled toward the destroyed equipment. The main console was ruined, but the backup systems were still active. With shaking hands, the young specialist reached under the station and found the emergency. Transmitter Bay pressed the activation button. Every recording from the past 3 weeks, including the violence happening right now, was transmitted in a burst signal. The data went to Earth. It went to 17 allied species. It went to independent news networks across the galaxy. Everything, every angle, every word, every shot fired, the truth was out. No one could stop it now. The emergency shields fully deployed, sealing sections of the chamber. The fighting stopped as guards on all sides found themselves separated by energy barriers. Medical teams rushed in to help the wounded. Park knelt beside Choi. She was conscious but bleeding badly. Medical personnel arrived and began treating her wound. The piece of debris had gone deep into her shoulder. Ambassador, she said weakly. Did we get it out? Park looked at Bay. The young specialist gave a nod. Yes, Park told Choi. The entire galaxy has seen the truth. Choi smiled despite her pain. Then the medical team sedated her and took her away. Park stood slowly. Across the divided chamber, Vrex stared at him with cold fury. The High Chancellor knew he had been exposed. More importantly, he knew the humans had outsmarted him. In the corner, Observer Rythan's crystalline form pulsed with light. The ancient Silex was recording everything too in their own way. And for the first time anyone could remember, Rythan spoke. The voice was like crystal bells ringing. The humans have shown us something we forgot. They have shown us that truth can be preserved. That power cannot hide from evidence. That justice requires memory. Park looked at the ancient observer. Rythan's light pulsed once more, and Park understood. The Silex approved. Humanity had passed a test that the galaxy did not even know existed. The council chamber was in lockdown. Security forces from multiple species were investigating what happened. But the most important investigation was already complete. The recordings had shown everything. There would be no confusion about who attacked first, who told the truth, and who tried to destroy evidence. They had laughed at Earth's rules. They had mocked the humans for recording everything. Now those recordings had exposed the truth that could not be hidden. Everything was about to change. The recordings spread across the galaxy like fire. Within hours, every major news network was showing the footage. The private meeting where Vrex and Kelth admitted their conspiracy. The moment Thalen guards opened fire. The human delegation's defensive response. Everything. Park and his team were separated and placed in protective custody. This was standard procedure after violence in the council chamber. Park did not resist. He knew the recordings would speak for themselves. Dr. Choi was in the medical center recovering from surgery. The debris had damaged her shoulder badly, but the doctors said she would heal. Commander Kwan and his security team were being questioned about the firefight. Bay was also in custody but safe. In his holding room, Park watched the news reports on a screen. The galaxy was reacting with shock and anger. Rex tried to control the damage. The High Chancellor gave a speech claiming the recordings were manipulated by Earth's advanced technology. He said humans had created false evidence to make the Thalans look guilty. But Earth was ready for this. Within hours of Rex's speech, Earth released something that changed everything. It was not just the recordings from the Council. It was a recording from 6 months earlier, before Park had even left Earth. The preparation session, the footage showed Park, Choi, Kwan, and Bay in a training room on Earth. They were preparing for their assignment to the Galactic Council. The recording was crystal clear. Dr. Choi appeared in the video, healthy and confident, presenting her research. The Council operates without detailed records, Choi explained to the group. This creates opportunity for manipulation. The powerful control history because there is no objective evidence to challenge them. We found 30 major inconsistencies just in the public records. Imagine what happens in private negotiations. Park's voice came next. Then we will create a record that cannot be questioned. We will document everything with such precision that no amount of political power can overcome it. A senior Earth official appeared in the recording. Ambassador, you understand they will mock you for this? Park nodded. Yes, they will see our methods as primitive. They will laugh at our obsession with documentation. But when the moment comes, and it will come, we will have something they do not. We will have truth that cannot be denied. The recording showed detailed discussions of recording technology, backup systems, and security protocols. Every device, every redundancy, every verification method, it had all been planned before Park ever reached the Council. The galaxy watched this preparation recording and understood. The humans had not stumbled into exposing corruption. They had set a trap. They had accepted mockery as part of their strategy. They had turned weakness into strength. But the most devastating part came next. Earth released verification data for all the recordings. They showed the footage from 17 different angles and sensor types. They provided audio spectrum analysis proving no digital manipulation. They offered biometric data confirming the identity of every speaker. They gave environmental sensor readings that proved the time, location, and atmospheric conditions. They presented blockchain verification of every timestamp. It was impossible to fake. Multiple independent experts from different species examined the evidence. All of them reached the same conclusion. The recordings were authentic. Rex's defense collapsed. He could not claim the recordings were false when the evidence was so overwhelming. He could not claim the humans had lied when everything was documented in perfect detail. Other species began requesting access to all of Earth's recordings from council sessions. What they discovered shocked them. The patterns Choi had identified were real. The Thalan-Vorix conspiracy was not an isolated incident. It was part of a long history of manipulation. Smaller species who had always suspected they were being cheated now had proof. Trade agreements that seemed unfair were shown to be based on lies. Territorial disputes that had been decided in favor of the powerful were revealed as frauds. The entire diplomatic culture of the Council was built on sand. After 5 days, the Council reconvened for an emergency session. Park was released from protective custody and allowed to attend. Dr. Choi watched from the medical center. The chamber was tense and quiet. Observer Rythan stood at the center platform. The crystalline being's voice rang out clearly. The Silex have observed for thousands of years, Rythan said. We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We have watched species gain wisdom and lose it. Never have we seen what the humans accomplished. The chamber was absolutely silent. The humans weaponized truth. Rythan continued. They accepted mockery as the price of certainty. They understood something we forgot. That power without accountability becomes corruption. That memory without records becomes convenient fiction. The humans did not simply discover wrongdoing. They made it impossible to hide. Rythan turned toward Park. Ambassador, your species has given the galaxy a great gift. You have shown us that justice requires evidence, that honor requires verification. That trust must be earned through transparency, not demanded through power. Park stood and bowed respectfully. He said nothing. There was nothing to say. The council moved to formal proceedings. An emergency tribunal was established to investigate the conspiracy. Vrex and Kelth were charged with corruption, fraud, conspiracy, and ordering violence against a diplomatic delegation. The trial lasted 3 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Every claim the prosecution made was supported by recordings. Every defense the accused offered was contradicted by time-stamped footage. There was no room for interpretation or debate. Both were found guilty on all charges. High Chancellor Vrex was removed from power. The Thalan government recalled him in disgrace. Emissary Kelth faced the same fate with the Vorax. Both species apologized formally to the Council and to Earth. The disputed star system, Threshold 7, was placed under neutral Council administration. Earth was granted supervisory observation rights, a position that recognized humanity's unique capability for objective documentation. But the real changes went much deeper. The Council voted to establish new protocols. All official proceedings would be recorded. Multiple independent systems would maintain archives. Public access would be granted after appropriate delays. Species could no longer manipulate history because history would be preserved. Not everyone supported the reforms. Species that benefited from the old system fought against the changes, but the smaller powers formed a coalition demanding transparency. They had seen what truth could accomplish. They wanted that protection for themselves. Earth, the newest and supposedly weakest member of the Council, suddenly became the champion of reform. Other species sent representatives to study human archival methods. Requests flooded in for Earth-trained documentation specialists. Commander Quan was fully exonerated. His security footage showed he had acted in defense of the delegation. His response had been measured and appropriate. Several Council species offered him positions training their own security forces in what they called Earth Standard Protocols. Specialist Bay received honors from Earth and 17 other species. Her quick thinking during the attack had saved the recordings. Her technical skill had made the verification impossible to challenge. She was young, but she had changed history. Dr. Choi recovered slowly. The injury to her shoulder would leave scars, but she wore them with pride. She had been right about the patterns of corruption. Her research had laid the foundation for everything that followed. 3 months after the violence, Park visited Choi in the human quarters. She was doing physical therapy, rebuilding strength in her injured arm. "How does it feel to have changed the galaxy?" Park asked with a slight smile. Choi laughed. "Painful, but worth it." They stood at the window, looking out at the Council station and the stars beyond. "They laughed at our rules," Choi said quietly. Park nodded. And then the recording changed everything. The galaxy would never be the same. Truth had become a power that even the mighty could not ignore. And it was all because humanity had brought something simple but revolutionary to the stars: the determination to remember. The Council's new recording protocols became the standard across all diplomatic interactions. Every species maintained detailed archives. Independent observers verified important agreements. Public access laws allowed citizens to review government actions after appropriate time delays. Corruption did not disappear completely. It never would. But hiding corruption became nearly impossible. Leaders who tried to manipulate the truth found themselves exposed by recordings. Officials who lied faced evidence they could not deny. Multiple long-standing disputes were resolved when objective records replaced competing claims. Species who had argued for decades about boundaries or trade agreements finally had proof to settle their differences. Sometimes the truth favored one side. Sometimes it favored neither. But at least everyone knew what the truth was. Earth's diplomatic corps expanded rapidly. What started with 4 people in the Council chamber grew into hundreds of trained specialists. Other species sent their diplomats to Earth to learn proper documentation methods. The phrase Earth Standard Documentation became shorthand across the galaxy for unquestionable verification. Ambassador Park never left the Council. He was promoted to Earth's permanent representative, the highest diplomatic position humanity held in galactic affairs. He still insisted on recording everything. Other species no longer laughed. They joined him. Dr. Hanul Choi became Earth's chief council analyst. Her shoulder healed, though she carried the scars as reminders. She published studies on how documentation changed galactic politics. Her research was required reading in diplomatic schools across 40 species. Her most famous conclusion was simple but profound. Humanity's greatest gift to galactic civilization was not technology or military strength. It was the understanding that truth could be preserved, verified, and defended against the convenient distortions of memory and power. Commander Kwan trained security forces from a dozen different species in what became known as defensive documentation protocols. His methods showed how recordings protected both civilians and security personnel. Violence decreased in diplomatic settings because everyone knew their actions would be documented and reviewed. Specialist Yan Wu Bei led Earth's program for training documentation specialists. Young beings from across the galaxy came to learn from her. She taught them not just the technical skills, but the philosophy behind them, that preserving truth was a form of service to all civilizations. Bei often told her students the story of that violent day in the council chamber. She showed them the footage from multiple angles. She explained how redundant systems saved the recordings even when the primary equipment was destroyed. She made sure they understood that their work mattered. On the 5th anniversary of the Threshold 7 incident, the council held a special ceremony. Representatives from all member species attended. Even the Thalans and Vorics sent delegates, though their leaders had changed. Observer Rythan, the ancient Silex who rarely spoke, addressed the assembly. The Silex have observed galactic civilization for longer than most species have existed. We have seen patterns repeat across millennia. The powerful dominate, the weak suffer. History is written by victors. This is the way of things. The chamber was silent, waiting, until humanity showed us a different way. They did not conquer through force. They did not manipulate through deception. They simply refused to let truth be forgotten. They took their painful history, their wars, their propaganda, their failures, and turned those lessons into a gift for all of us. Light refracted through Rythan's body, creating rainbows across the walls. The Silex honor truth above all else. This is why we observe. This is why we remember. We recognize in humanity a kindred spirit. They will endure because they refuse to forget. They will guide others because they understand the power of evidence. The galaxy is better because they joined us. The chamber erupted in approval. It was not applause. Different species expressed agreement in different ways. But the message was clear. Humanity had earned respect. After the ceremony, Park stood with his team in their quarters. They had been together for 5 years now. They had become more than colleagues. They were friends who had changed history together. Do you remember the first day? When they laughed at us for setting up cameras? Kwan smiled. I wanted to punch someone. I thought we looked weak. We did look weak. That was the point, Park nodded. Apparent weakness was our strategy. Let them underestimate us. Let them think we were paranoid or primitive. Meanwhile, we built something they did not have. A weapon made of truth. They stood at the window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, new species were joining the galactic community. They would learn Earth's methods. They would carry forward the lesson humanity had taught. The next day, Park addressed a group of 40 junior diplomats from 20 different species. They had come to learn from Earth's delegation. They wanted to understand how humans approach diplomatic work. Park began the same way he always did. They will mock you. They will call your methods excessive. They will say you are paranoid or untrusting. They will laugh at your attention to detail. Let them. The students listened carefully. Because when truth matters, and it always does eventually, you will have something they do not. You will have certainty. You will have evidence. You will have records that cannot be disputed by any amount of political power or clever words. Park activated a display showing the recording from that day 5 years ago. The private meeting. The confession. The violence. The moment everything changed. This is why we record everything. Not because we expect everyone to lie, but because when someone does lie, we need to be able to prove it. Justice requires evidence. Truth requires memory. Peace requires accountability. A young alien from a species park did not recognize raised an appendage. Ambassador, what if they destroy your equipment? What if they stop you from recording? Park smiled. Then you use backup systems, and backup systems for your backup systems. You transmit data immediately to secure locations. You make copies upon copies. You ensure that destroying one device means nothing. He pointed to Bei. Specialist Bei's equipment was destroyed during the attack, but the recording survived because we had prepared for exactly that possibility. Truth must be protected like any valuable resource. The training continued for weeks. The students learned technical skills and philosophical principles. They studied Earth's history to understand why humans valued documentation so highly. They examined case studies where recordings had exposed corruption or protected the innocent. When the training ended, 40 new documentation specialists returned to their home worlds. They carried with them not just equipment, but a new way of thinking about truth and power. Years continued to pass. The changes deepened. New generations grew up in a galaxy where documentation was normal. They could not imagine how things had been before, how easily the powerful had manipulated truth, how often the weak had suffered without proof of injustice. Earth became known not for military strength or technological advancement, though humanity had both. Earth became known as the species that gave the galaxy back its memory, the species that refused to let truth be forgotten. In human quarters across the galaxy, diplomats still set up their recording equipment before every meeting. They still verified timestamps. They still maintained redundant backups. Some aliens still found it excessive, but no one laughed anymore, because everyone had learned the lesson. Everyone understood what the recordings had proven. Ambassador Park, now older but still sharp, reviewed the day's recordings as he did every evening. Dr. Choi was compiling data. Commander Kwan was checking security systems. Specialist Bay was verifying backup protocols. It was routine now, almost boring. But that was good. Boring meant the system was working. Boring meant corruption had to hide. Boring meant justice could prevail. Park saved the day's recordings, tagged them properly, verified the timestamps, and added them to humanity's growing archive of galactic history. Tomorrow he would do it again, and the next day, and the next, because that is what humans do. They remember. They document. They preserve truth. The galaxy, which once laughed at these practices, now depended on them. The mockery had turned to respect. The weakness had become strength. The primitive habit had transformed into galactic standard. They had laughed at Earth's rules. Then the recording changed everything, and the galaxy would never forget.